This is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Good morning and welcome to Guardian Radio AM. Today is Friday, March 17th, and it's a little after 11 o'clock in the morning. Once again, this is C.A. Newry, and I shall be your host today as we talk about whether this Royal Caribbean Beach Club is a done deal. Now, earlier, I was round Aaron and say, Aaron, this Royal Caribbean deal is a done deal. They only got to do the environmental impact study, and that's that. We can have all kind of technology and a new tourism product. You already hear Morris saying this is going to be good for the Bahamas. This is a done deal. Then Aaron said, it can't be a done deal, Cecil. I said, what do you mean it can't be a done deal? I said, it announced, the Prime Minister said he expected to start any minute now. Any minute, any day, any second, any hour, they can start the construction of this. All of a sudden, Atlantis come out of the blue and say, wait. It can't be a done deal. And then everyone seemed to be backpedaling. Then I said, look, like Aaron was right. I said, Aaron, this might not be a done deal for true. And I said, but this gotta be a done deal. But today, I have Aaron Green joining me today as we discuss whether the Royal Caribbean International Beach Club proposal is a done deal and whether Bahamians can have any commentary about it. And also I have in studios Dimitri Taylor, who actually works in tourism and does tours and stuff or from off a bay. So he's intimately involved in the whole aspect, and he has skin in the game. And he said, man, I want to come and give one or two commentary about what I think about this done deal, right? So I have those two. So it's going to be a lively and provocative exchange. But I'll start with Aaron. Aaron, you there?
Yes, good morning.
Aaron, the Prime Minister says any minute now you should expect construction to start. What say you?
Who's going to build it? That's the first thing I say.
It could be Bahamians. I saw that report. 80% could be Bahamians and the rest could be foreign people, the specialists.
Well, when are they going to build it? When will they be able to coordinate this quote unquote 80% Bahamian? Because the qualified, skilled, sought after labor, they already deeply ensconced. They deeply entrenched in companies, in projects with employers who do not want to let them go, with employers who do not want to run the risk of not being able to call them when they need them. So I don't know. We do have skilled labor in this country. We do have excellent tradesmen, craftsmen, artisan, and experts in their field. The question is, can you organize all of that labor to be available, not just for this project, but considering the number of projects that are being initiated, that are being begun, that are on the table? How will you coordinate the existing available, but particularly to be able to satisfy the terms of this new agreement? And the terms of this new agreement must be not just excellent, but it must stand so much in the favor of the Bahamian laborer that we could ignore some fundamental breaches in policy and in governance and in political culture.
It seems
so I don't know.
You seem to if you doubt the Prime Minister. And then you hinting that we have a labor shortage that we need to be concerned with. And you also hinting that perhaps this labor is going to be done by a foreign source. But I want to read this into the record. And then I have Dimitri come in from a downtown perspective on what his concerns are, right? And then we can respond to that. Say, Prime Minister Philip, this is just a couple of days ago. This is March 10th. Prime Minister Philip Davis said Royal Caribbean International will break ground on its $110 million beach club project on Paradise Island almost immediately, telling reporters his administration approved the project in part because tourists need more attraction. In 2020, I didn't read that part. I didn't read the part where they approve. We approve the project to ensure that Bahamian participation is maximized. Bahamian opportunities are maximized, Mr. Davis said on the sidelines of an event. From the timeline that was given, they intended to start breaking ground almost immediately. Hopefully, it will be started because part of the challenges that we have in the country today is what we call attraction for tourism. Very often, on any given day, we could have up to 30,000 tourists in our port, and there has to be attraction for them. This will be one of the other attractions that will be available to them, and so that very welcome news for us. And there will be opportunities for Bahamians, Mr. Davis says, and it goes on, and Chester Cooper comment on it, right? And say that we have a duty of care and responsibility for investments in aviation, and reading, scanning, and mention the Crown land. Say, as for the Crown land being leased to RCI, Mr. Cooper said the government planned to also convert this asset into the development, and this is where he started to say it's a better plan. And I want us to discuss that, Aaron. Mm-hmm. The former Prime Minister, Hubert Minnis, MP for Kalani, said that this current plan that the PLP administration is putting forward is a diminished plan in contrast to what they initially put forward. They initially put forward a plan where Grand Bahama would have benefited, and as a consolidatory prize, auxiliary prize, that they would have allowed RCI to get access to this Paradise Island land. Mm-hmm. Right? The main prize was getting Grand Bahama developed in some way, investment to Grand Bahama, and for consolation and for advancement to ensure that happens, they would have gotten access to the Paradise Island now. The government said this is a different deal. That deal with the FNM had was not good. This deal is solely about the land on Paradise Island, and now Bahamians will get it. That's what was mentioned by the Chester Cooper. Which one will be the better deal? And Mitri could come in along without your opinion. But go ahead, Aaron.
I was going to say, two things. I'm not sure if the Prime Minister said what you said at the end there about the better deal.
That's what it said. I'm going to read it now and quote. But go ahead, Aaron.
No, what I'm saying is, in terms of the deal, until we see this deal and we see the last deal, prior deal, we see the terms on paper published, we can't make determination. They're just talking at this point. Just
good morning.
Empty rhetoric.
Go ahead, Dimitri.
Good morning. My name is Demetrius Taylor. I am a public service driver. I am also an ambassador of the Bahamas. Now, like you said, the PLP struck a better deal. It is a better deal. But for who? It sounds like it's a better deal for the investor and not the Bahamian. Because if the first deal was Grand Bahama up and running, because we know our sweet Bahama, Grand Bahama land has suffered so much, the investor came in with the pretense that, okay, we're gonna help you with Grand Bahama. When Dr. Minnis signed off on that deal, the main catalyst was to get Grand Bahama up and running. As a Bahamian, when I heard that, I was ecstatic. I was like, wow, you know what? Someone finally taking care of Grand Bahama, because Grand Bahama suffered so much. So the investor came in and said, oh, we're going to take care of Grand Bahama. And then Dr. Minnis said, you know what? If you do this, we got a little concession for you. But then the investor reneges on the Grand Bahama's deal. So the investor said, you know what? I really don't care about your people. I really only want what I wanted, and that's Paradise Island. So it is a better deal, but not for Bahamians. See, we could pretty this up and talk about, they jobs and 200 this and that. But if you're taking away from the vendors on Bay Street, and you're taking away from the public service drivers on Bay Street, and then forwarding them on to the western end of Paradise Island, which would mean that they don't need to come on Bay Street, They don't need to take a taxi to Paradise Island because the conglomerate has now taken that from the Bahamian people.
Let me interject there, Mitri, and Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong. The Deputy Prime Minister says that the ferrying will be done by Bahamians. Wasn't that said? That's not taken away from anybody. That's given access to Bahamians.
There was a specific statement that said that
Go
I
ahead.
think ferry services from the port in New Providence to the site, right, would be owned and operated by Bahamians. I mean, and that's there's a specific location. The question is that semantics? Is that just a political right? Is it just flowery speech in a speech? Because it means now we have to question: are you suggesting that from the port, Nassau City proper site will be Bahamians only, but that the crews can tender a ferry people from the cruise ship to the island, that they could ferry people from another island or key that they own to the island, right? These things have to be, if at a contractual level, they have to be specific and accurate. Then when our leaders speak to us, we demand and require and demand that they are also specific and accurate in their language.
Go ahead, Mitri.
Okay, Aaron, allow me to just give you a geographical makeup of the way the Portsea Dock is set. There is a multi-million-dollar building that's going to be so beautiful that, you know what, top-notch, cutting edge. The tourists that come off the boat geographically will not have to step foot on Nassau because the construction is whereby they can just be shuttled and not even touch Bay Street. See, Mr. Cooper, as much as he may sound nice and the investment, this and that, when you are on the ground, and I physically work on the ground, so I could see that physically you do not have to even come on to Nassau because now what you do is you get your shuttle, you tell your customers, you know what, go straight on the boat, and they go straight directly on the western end. See, as a taxi driver or as an ambassador, we expect for them to come to the road. And when they come where we are, we can then transport them. But it's a shortcut now that they don't even have to see us. See, and we talk about the vendors. You know, there's times when 6 ships in harbor. You know, when you look at the forecast, you're like, wow, you know what? I'm going to make some money to feed my family today. But then when you look and you're disappointed because, wow, 6 ships were not really benefiting us. 6 ships were really benefiting Royal Caribbean because technically the cruise ship industry, so technically they're getting full, but if they can keep their people on the boat, they will never have to see the Bahamian people. See, when Mr. Davis made this new deal, this was mainly to benefit the cruise ship industry and not Bahamians. And I can tell you because I am on the ground and I am a passionate Bahamian, and not only is it hurting us, it's going to hurt our future because they're going to want more concessions and bigger companies like Atlantis. You take Atlantis and you take them for granted. Atlantis is starting to make noise. You know why? Because you know what? Atlantis is owned by Brookfield, which is an asset company, which means that if they see that the government is not doing what they're going to do, you know what they're going to do? They're going to start laying off people.
No, that's all speculative. But I still have a number of callers on the line, and I'll put them through, and I want Aaron to respond because I see you saying a lot of speculative language, and I know you got to be challenged, right? But I want to read this. I see you callers are going to read this, right? As part of the agreement was, this is the former Prime Minister Hubert Minnis. Say, as part of the agreement was Grand Bahama had to be included, Dr. Minnis said. The hotel in Grand Bahama had to be part of it so that the Grand Bahamians can benefit. That was the approval. Grand Bahama, you cannot allow the PLP to leave you out. You were a part of it. You are a part of the Bahamas. And as I sat in the meeting, not only to be signed, but we shook hands, and there was an agreement that Grand Bahama, they understood that they could not receive the property. There is, my phone just went dead. forgive me. There was an agreement that Grand Bahama, they understood that they could not receive the property. There is being no agreement unless Grand Bahama was on a part of it, and he went on there. But I see Chester Cooper, Deputy Prime Minister, said the project will cover 17 acres, and of that 17 acres, 13 acres represents privately held land. Some 4 acres of crown land that was included in the lease to RCI. And I'm reading that to say this RCI deal is going to happen anyway because they have 13 acres of land, right? And the Bahamas now has a vested interest in it by adding or making available the 4 acres of land. But I want you to comment on that, Aaron, right after I connect these callers. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
Hi, pleasant good morning. Pleasant good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Okay, and good morning to your guests. I think you have Aaron in there and Demetrius.
Yes,
Or
sir.
Dimitri.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
Can you all hear me clearly?
Yeah, man, just
Yes,
go
sir.
ahead.
Yes,
Just
sir.
go ahead.
Okay, good. Look, I want to take the conversation back a bit further. That shows the duplicity in some of what is being said by Dimitri, right? The former Prime Minister, Dr. Hubert Minnis, he made a deal on the table with RCI, that he inherited from the former Prime Minister or the prior Prime Minister.
The Grand Bahamian deal.
Yes.
That the
Which
Grand Bahama's going to come
Hold on,
first.
but
No,
not only that-
hold on.
not only that-
No, hold on. I just want to make sure we
I
understand
still
the
have the
same.
floor, Dimitri.
No,
I
that's
still
me.
have the
That's
floor.
me. No, I have the floor. I just
But
want to
I'm
make
making
sure.
the point now.
Yeah, but you have to respond to my point. I'm just trying to make sure we're understanding the same thing. You were talking about
Okay.
the Grand Bahamian deal first, and then consequent of that, the RCI deal. Is that what you said?
I'm talking about the Awalukaya deal, and as well as the condo deal opposite the office of the Prime Minister here in New Providence, which the former Prime Minister Hubert Minnis inherited from his predecessor, Right Honorable Perry Christie, right? What happened in that deal? At the end of the day, we saw where those investors, they were looking to borrow monies from the Hubert Minnis F&M-led government in order to advance their own project in our country. They were looking to borrow money from the government, between, I think, $25 to $50 million, and allow them, I think, a concession of another decade before they even started paying interest. They dropped the Grand Bahama deal, and the Prime Minister, Hubert Minnis, still allowed them to go ahead and develop those beautiful condos, the Goldman Group it is. They developed those beautiful condos opposite the office of the Prime Minister. So the former Prime Minister is not one who can come to the table now and talk to the Bahamian people about caring for the Grand Bahama community. In addition to that, fast forward to what's happening now. The Minister for Investment and Deputy Prime Minister, Chester Cooper, revealed in Parliament that the former administration struck a deal that allowed for the RCI group to lock out of any benefit whatsoever all Bahamians in our own country with an investment in 2022, 2023. Does that sound like a government or a prime minister who gives any 2 cents about the Bahamian people? It certainly does not. The deal that has been struck now will allow for ownership on the part of the Bahamian people to the land that the government is investing in, beachfront land.
Go ahead.
Caller.
I put him on hold.
Caller. I'm reading from an article in last week's paper, Davis's change of view on RCI due to revised plans. This is from the Nassau Tribune last week. Davis's change of view on RCI due to revised plans. And from that article, here is a quote from the Prime Minister. It is also important to note that RCI has committed to creating some entrepreneurial opportunities for Bahamians, including the ferry service fully operated by Bahamians and owned by Bahamians. These were additional requests that were specifically included, but the government wanted to ensure the human Bahamian stakeholder and ownership in this, and also Bahamians to be able to invest up to 49% in this project. That's a lot of poetry there. I don't quite understand what he means, caller, but I want to ask you, when he says he wanted to ensure the human Bahamian stakeholder and ownership in this, and also Bahamians to be able to invest up to 49% in this project, doesn't that mean that they're inviting us to help pay for the project too?
Well, the call drops him. Hopefully he calls back so he can respond to that. But I have another caller there. Producer, patch the caller through. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
Good morning, and thank you for such a wonderful addressing you're doing. Good morning.
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 The gentleman who's talking about the Surrey, I want to ask him a question. That the Surrey is available the minute you come off, so persons can have that in their head already, and all of the other good stuff that we offer before you go to some island. I just want to find out if you're advertising, or they would allow you to advertise your Surrey on those cruise ships.
Okay, now back to what I was saying about the whole not having to come to Nassau. We all know the Surrey, and I apologize for leaving out the Surrey. The Surrey, the taxi drivers, the vendors, these items are literally, when you come out, we have to sell these to you. The only thing the cruise ship sells is their own cruises and tours that goes with their own, which are large companies, which are tour companies that are taken away, which goes right back against what Selenium Vision was. So the tour companies are now...
Before my time is up, could I just bring another point up? Because listening to you, I have to actually hang on. Wouldn't it appear to you that if government was continuous and the opposition and the current, as the consultation before they do anything, would have a continuous flow, the Bahamas would have been so much further on than going back and forth, and with persons who have no business knowledge. And when you bring some of the business knowledge, then they bring in a bunch of people to take all our ragged Really deep too.
Well, the problem with that is, it's funny. It's funny that you would say that. Every member of parliament should be a representation of their community. When the community has a point to bring across, they should go to the community. Decisions are made in this Bahamas without even coming to the Bahamian people. The only thing government need people for is to put them in power. Then they forget about us. This situation was not brought forth. This new deal was struck. And, when they say it will be, Bahamians will be vested, it's because their personal friends and lovers will be getting the contracts.
And I got to stop you right there, Dimitri. The headline, Deputy Prime Minister, broad consultations before final RCI approval. So I hear what you're complaining about, but it can't be true because the Deputy Prime Minister said on Wednesday he expects there to be a broad consultation. He's going to consult you, he's going to consult me, and then the final decision is going to be made. But go ahead, Aaron. You had some comments you want to mention?
Yeah, I really appreciate the point that you make about proximity to the guest, right? We addressed this partially in a show either earlier this week or late last week. We're talking about tours and how do we engage the tourists, right? Like first of all, how do we turn a cruise passenger into a heads in bed passenger, right? Someone who is only here for limited time, how do we make them extend their stay or come back for an extended stay, right? Now, I'm an anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist advocate, but I'll tell you this. When you're the small guy, you got to practice some martial arts and learn how to use the momentum of the big guy to your benefit, right? So one of the ideas that I threw on the table in an earlier conversation was that you have a whole bunch of inventory, a whole bunch of land or resource available to you to advertise in. So as the cruise ships are entering Bahamian territorial water, I go as far as to hire a barge that advertises my services as the cruise ship enters our waters and comes into the harbor. If I feel like the cruise ships are acting in a way that diverts the guest gaze, right, from any, we could have murals and billboards set up in high visibility spots as the boats come in through the harbor into port. Okay, the second thing is this. And then also from the airport to the hotel, you can advertise your experiences. The second thing is this. You can engage the guest, the potential guest, outside of the mechanisms created by the cruise ship. Yes, all cruise passengers, they connect to the cruise social media and digital presence to get a sense of what they could do while they're here. But we can collectively and individually, if we think it makes sense, but it don't, as big groups, we come together and we advertise. We navigate the same space that the cruise ships are using to engage the customer.
But Aaron,
And
before Dimitri engage you, right? And
Yeah.
I remember we have a date for this topic
man.
that you're talking about, and I don't want to preempt that, right? My question is, a
That's
done
the
deal.
That's my thing. See,
Can we complain? Can we object? Can we lobby to change things?
Hold on, we don't have to complain. The processes that are required have avenues for public consultation. What we must do is we must demand certain things. First of all, we must demand that the EIA and the environmental impact assessment and the environmental management plan are published, not just published, that they are accessible, not just accessible, but that the government staff are made available to explain to the Bahamian people what the documents mean without fear of victimization or reprisal. It have to be a government activity. There is always space for us to object. And we don't have to wait until election day.
I want to ask you, Dimitri, do you expect the government to consult the taxi drivers and the Surrey drivers in the immediate future? Our Deputy Prime Minister say he coming soon, and you can have the same voice that you're griping about, right? You have the chance to explain what you got concerned about.
Okay. Now, we came here to talk about the deal itself and how it would hurt Bahamians. See, people keep saying taxi drivers. I've given you from the vision of the people as Bahamians. See, the money that we make come directly from the tourists, and we trickle that into our economy. If there's one thing these big businesses don't do, is trickle into the economy or do anything for the Bahamas. The only entity that did for the Bahamas was Curzon International.
You sound like you're advertising for that company, man.
No, because I look at the people who's on the ground and who's built us and who cared about us. What I'm saying and what I'm talking about, I'm not talking about all these other things, I'm talking about this deal. See, I don't like to negate from the fact. I like to get on the deal. This deal, what they're talking about, they said, it's going to be 49% owned by Bahamians. By who? You mean the rich people who are already going to invest in these stuff and leave us out? I'm telling you where, and we're doing in demographics. Okay, we're going to see how it's going to biologically destroy our coral reefs and all that. That's fine. But what about the people? You ever thought about studying the people? Because you can say, yes, we're going to look in and we're going to get consultation. But if you're going to sign the deal, what's the sense of us talking? If this deal is still in wait, this needs to wait until they get further consultation.
And that's what our Deputy Prime Minister said, is going to wait. And I hear you talking, and I was supposed to correct it. And in the cruise ships, and you hinted that is our RCI. They're different companies. RCI is one boat.
And it starts with them. And then the others will want more.
That's
remember.
Conspiracy theory.
No. See, remember one cruise ship had a key on their own island. Now you got 5 cruise ships because what Monkey see, Monkey want too.
So you trying to say you're scared?
I'm not scared. I'm looking for our government to look out for the poor people, for the Bahamians. Not look out for the 49% who's going to invest stakes. They say that 49% ownership. But which small man have ownership? The only ownership that only people who have the capital to invest in these are the rich. So you still, you use and again, the PLP is using the propaganda party of the poor people. We care about the poor, but we're showing the poor people are screaming out, hey, this does not help us. And you still turn around and say, hey, it helps us though. The rich.
So Demetrius, I want to put a position on the table. Do we call for a number of actions and policy decisions? Do we first call for a moratorium on the sale and even the leasing, because we shouldn't be selling anything, but we put a moratorium on the sale of private islands and keys or known islands and keys for the purpose of constructing tourism projects, right? We put a moratorium on it. And then secondarily, we set a standard. We say, okay, we're going to hold this moratorium until local ownership and investment in tourism and tourism mechanisms and products hits a certain percentage. what percentage of the tourism industry should be owned by Bahamians to be able to protect Bahamians' interests in the industry itself and the resources required to produce this product.
Okay, allow me to even go right back to the deal. See, we need investment in this country, but we don't need investors that will renege on the original contract and then run away with the concession. Because it was all about Grand Bahama first. Then all of a sudden, they threw Grand Bahama on the side. So what else will they throw aside just to get what they want? The concession of Paradise Island is what they always wanted, and they bamboozled.
But this is what I want you and Aaron to respond. The Deputy Prime Minister reminded us that out of the total amount of land, acreage, is going to be using, the majority of it, and the exact number went blank, so I couldn't tell you. I'll hopefully get it.
17, 13, and 4.
So, okay, there's 17 acres, say 13 acres of it is already owned by Royal Caribbean. It's theirs. They could do whatever they, depending on the assessment, environmental assessment, they could do whatever they want on their land, on their private land. How can we get vexed? And again, I'm not mentioning the environmental impact. According, let's say that that's approved, right? Surely it's in the best interest of the government to say, hey, since you're going to do what you're going to do, let me facilitate this and give the Bahamian people access to the benefits.
Now,
Let Aaron respond. Go ahead, Aaron.
You talking about gambling, eh?
Well,
I thought you were talking about gambling for a second.
Go ahead.
Okay, here's my position. It may appear to be draconian, but it's a consistent position. First of all, reinstate the Immovable Properties Act. These people, the premise upon which your argument suggests that there's nothing that the government could do about private sales.
Yeah.
That ain't no truth.
In the Bahamas.
That just is not true. So, reinstate the Immovable Properties Act, make it retroactive, convert all of those sales to leases. You see, the Prime Minister used some very interesting language in that article, Davis's change of view on RCI due to revised plans. He says, but the government wanted to ensure the human Bahamian stakeholder and ownership in this. The first thing I want to ask is, who is the human Bahamian stakeholder? But more importantly, who is the non-human Bahamian stakeholder?
Okay,
Take the land back, convert it all to lease, right? Convert it all to lease, and then go back through the process. Because it don't matter that land was previously, it was in private hands. The government still not only has control, but has an obligation to make the right decision.
Aaron, I have a call. I'm going to patch that caller through. Caller, can you hear me? Caller? I have it. Caller, can you hear me? That line is not there. Producer, help me out with the next line, please. Patch that caller through. I have two callers there. It's not working?
Hello?
Oh, yes, sir. Go ahead.
You can hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, Newry. Aaron.
Morning.
Miss. But Newry, I want to ask that gentleman something, right? Now, I listening to him, and I'm a little bit disturbed because we know that the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, the Cabinet Ministers, we know that the opposition leader, we know that the Deputy Opposition Leader, we know that all of them are government, and these are the government that is trying to help the Bahamian people. Now, if my Prime Minister and my Deputy Prime Minister make an international broad statement that this deal will be Bahamian central, let's use that word, right? This is for the Bahamian, an opportunity for them to progress in their island, in their nation. I have a problem when you try to compare what this government is doing to what the other government was trying to do. See, we got to live in the now. We can't live in the yesterday. Now. And when we try to put down what our government is saying, when whatever they doing it for the betterment of us as Bahamians.
Thank you very much.
When that gentleman who on now speaking, he is not speaking for the Bahamian. He's speaking for himself because he is not one that know when this deal is done, what will be taking place. He don't know what the structure, the movement will be with people. Only Jesus know that, oh God. So he can't be making the government look like they ain't doing what they supposed to do. They doing what they supposed to do.
Okay, thank you very much, caller. Go ahead, Dimitri, quickly, so I get the extra call.
I need you to do me a favor, caller. Just take the Nassau Guardian, and it says, Minister does not support RCI project.
And we're supposed to talk about that?
Hannah Martin. So just do your little research, sir.
Patch your next caller there, and Aaron, get that notes for Hannah Martin for me, please, so we can talk about that. Patch your caller through. Go ahead, caller, can you hear me? Caller, can you hear me? Nothing? Caller? Trying again. Caller, can you hear me?
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Newry.
Good morning, how you doing?
Good morning to Ms. Green and good morning to your guests.
Morning.
Morning, sir.
Anton made a significant point, the last caller, as far as the government coming out boldly and stating the benefits to the Bahamian populace as far as shares, et cetera, but and I'm sorry for even having this level of consciousness, right? So, the lack of knowledge about these things, Aaron, is very important. And you was talking about environmental impact assessment. I noticed Demetrius was saying the government haven't taken into account the effect on the people, but here's my imposition. A consequential environmental law set up whereby for coastal developments like such as this, right, Aaron? Because most of us are ignorant about the effects of reverse osmosis, because we feel as if it's the holy grail of water treatment. Really, it's good and it's beneficial, but there are pros and cons to it. And so what happens, Aaron, because these and other resorts, like the coastal regions, which, they interface with the longshore drift, right, Ms. Green? You understand what I'm saying, right? Yeah. All right, now, what you have then is the brine water, right, along with antiscalants and chlorides and other solvents, right, because disposing of the wastewater, which in most of it is wastewater, the recovery is less than half. So you would have a reverse osmosis machine making about 52 gallons a minute, and you may have about 140 or 30 gallons going to waste. And so that water is double in salinity. And hence, it is denser than seawater, so it forms saline plumes, which that affects marine organisms. So hence, I would call out for, what's the name of the Marine Institute in Eleuthera, Aaron?
This is the Island School.
Yeah, the Marine Institute, they could liaise with COB and do an anthropogenic study on the effects of the reverse. See, what happens is because to dump the brine water, which is about 70,000 plus total dissolved solids, right? To dump that back into the sea is actually twice, it has concentrated salts. That's why they call it brine wastewater. Coupled with the fact that other forms of wastewater, runoffs from Gulf Coast, the cruise ship, fecal matter, etc., because they wouldn't tell you when something is malfunctioning. They'll just dump it into the sea. Call it solution pollution, right? And so then we are not aware of this. Never in my life in the environmental impact assessment that I've seen anything about the effects of reverse osmosis, brine water, wastewater products, antiscalants, etc., in the wastewater. So then we are not knowledgeable in this paradigm, and we're not shedding the light on the effects of the marine organism. Of course, the government may care about people, but then what I'm saying is the environmental attacks would be to help people when they go to the hospital. So once you have something like this is what it's all about. The environmental impact just can't be a duping of the people whereby everyone on the planet, everyone on the island is congruent and nobody has any opposition. But I'm afraid that I haven't heard anybody even commenting on these, because these are antiscalants of polymers and all kind of phosphonic ionic polymers in them. So we're not aware of this. And because dumping it into the sea is the cheapest method, rather than aeration ponds or desalination. I mean, like
just to study impact is going to do.
Deep well injection. They're not going to do that, Mr. Newry.
Yeah.
So someone could just come in and explain that to the Bahamian people.
Good.
Bless up.
Good. And Aaron, you remember we got to get that Glenn's Hannah Martin quote, because I want to talk about that. But let's pass another caller through so we can get that. Caller, can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. You I didn't hear. I couldn't hear anything, so I had hung up. But I heard Aaron's question. And to answer your question, Aaron, as it relates to you were trying to draw the comparison, asking me, isn't it the same thing when
No, I
the
asked,
government of
not
Bahamas
isn't
is
it?
saying
I
they're
asked,
making
is it?
49% of the shares available or for Bahamians to buy ownership into the company?
Yeah,
no, it's
but
absolutely
listen,
not
I
the same thing.
didn't ask,
What happened with the previous deal
isn't it? I asked,
under
is
the
it?
Menace administration was that the investors were not able to, they lost their financial footing, and they needed the Bahamian government funds in order to approach their financiers in order to secure the financing they needed to develop the project. They lost their financial footing, and so they were incapable of doing that. What is happening now, when they invest their monies, that is not for the investor to be able to borrow the money. RCI or RCL is not short of money. That is for Bahamians to have full ownership into the project. So there is a complete difference. That's all I call back for. Thank you for the opportunity, Newry. God bless you all.
Okay, Antoine.
Take care.
Pleasure.
If
Go
that
ahead.
were the case, if that were the case, and if the corporate culture was such, right, then they would be leasing the land
Okay.
and not purchasing it. Hold on.
Yeah.
They would tell the government to create a mechanism to put the private land that they're leasing from Bahamians in to be managed by an independent body. But I don't think that's the corporate culture at play.
Okay, let's get that last caller, and then we talk about Clarence Hannah Martin. Go ahead, caller.
Hello.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Newry. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man.
And good morning to Mr. Green.
Morning.
You know, although, let me say it like this, Mr. Green. Sparky here. Although me and Antoine back the same party, sometimes when I get down to these political events, Antoine shows up and takes over everything as if he seems to have all the inside stories to everything. When the FNM Antoine was lambasting this radio station every particular day till he ran himself up on breaks with Mr. McCarthy and got barred. Now Antoine is surfaced again all of a sudden and has all the answer as if he sits inside cabinet, what's supposed to be secret, with all the answers to defend, I would say, our government, because I'm also a PLP. But my question is to my party as well, and all governments. It seems that when it comes to politics in this country, what used to be the middle class is now the working poor, and the poor has gone out into the shanty town. I say the poor Bahamians are now living in the shanty town.
Sparky,
But
can
what
I-
I get confused about at my late age, and most times I tell you I'm older than most of you, is that the average Bahamian always seems to get left behind the blackboard in the classroom.
Can I interject, Mr. Sparky? Just 1 second.
Yeah.
You talk about PLP and then you talk about FNM. And I am one who don't believe in parties. See, that's the problem now with our issue because, as you said, your friend agreed with it when it was FNM and now it's PLP, he disagreed, or whichever way it go. I am here as a Bahamian, and we need to stop this party thing. This is why we have the Great Divide. There's a new vision of voters that are coming, and we don't care about PLP, FNM. What we care about is what is good for our country. Why I'm here today is because I see something detriment to our tourism dollar. I don't care about the PLP. I don't care about the FNM. Let's focus on Bahamian.
And Aaron, Dimitri brought out that Glennis Hannah Martin had a position. Remind the listening audience what that position is, please.
The Guardian, right here.
Yeah, I'm going to have a read it.
Yeah.
No, man, so we got two headlines. We got Minister does not support RCI project in The Guardian. The Tribune headline is Minister still no to RCI deal. I like the Tribune headline because it indicates that there's been no change in her position from the first time that she spoke about it. We're going to read from the Guardian article quickly. In 2021, Hannah Martin called the then proposed deal harebrained. Quote, my views have not changed, she said when asked by reporters. The cruise industry does not require an island off New Providence. What we should cultural and entrepreneurial opportunities for the cruise ship visitors when they disembark. They keep saying there's nothing to do. Well, let's get something done. That argument has run a long time and it has shaped policy in a different direction. We need to see how we can get that going. Let me stick a pin here. She's not wrong. Remember, the Prime Minister said, you quoted in today's show, I made this decision about RCI partly because we have nothing for the tourists to do. This boy telling you, he made a whole policy decision disenfranchising, if not discriminating against the Bahamian and reneging on his own publicly made campaign promise.
You see it, right?
Quote unquote, Bahamians ain't got nothing to do.
So Bahamians don't have nothing to do. Tourists don't have nothing to do. So let's take them off the boat and take them on our island, on their own island. Don't put them into Nassau.
They say Bahamians can be working there too. Bahamians can be working on this.
Let's say you hire 100 Bahamians, but 10,000 people suffer. See, we have to get these people and bring them into Nassau. You can't take them off the boat and they don't even have to come onto Nassau. If you're talking about bettering the Bahamas, get these people off the boat because there's 6 ships. Get them off the boat and we need to start getting Nassau in place. Those derelict buildings, that's a whole different topic. But we need to get people from the boat to Nassau, not from the boat to their boat to the private island. And then you're talking about the 49% owned with the shuttling from Royal Caribbean to the western end of Paradise Island. That's for the rich. That's not gonna be for the poor.
And Aaron, my question to you is: I have an uneasy feeling of a minister having a divergent view from the cabinet, from just the deputy prime minister
pause.
And then the prime minister then speak.
I don't know why you look at it like that. My unease is why is it that only Hannah Martin ain't changed her mind?
I believe it's because it's a policy of the PLP. They say they made a decision for the benefit of all Bahamian friends and lovers. Hannah Martin need to come on board.
Demetrius, hold on. Demetrius, I ain't in the studio. I know we haven't met personally, but I'm not in the studio to cut my eye at you. So I need to publicly say I'm cutting my eye at you right now.
But let me show you.
Let's be easy for a minute, right? I think that it's reckless at this point to just say friends, family, and lovers, right? Because my position is that we have a political culture where the government will make a decision that they believe is politically expedient for them, right? Which is, I am going to approve the project that requires the least work from me to government, the least resources from me to government, and enables me to suck up the most revenue through taxes we can. And I think that's an element of lazy political vision, not corruption.
Let's look at, if I may, if this passed through, let's look and see who's going to be in charge of transporting these people. And then you're going to see why they were so adamant about passing this deal.
Okay, so stick a pin. I hear you. Here's my position in response to that. Your concern is the lack of access to New Providence, or the lack of access that vendors in Nassau have to guests that are coming in through the cruise program and into the port, right? And I offer this to you, that in our current state of affairs, that even if you open up the channel from the cruise ship to Nassau, that we in Nassau and extended wider New Providence and even the Family Islands, we are not sufficiently organized to manage the massive influx of people, and secondarily, to take advantage financially or economically from their presence. One of the benefits that the private island does provide for the cruise ship and for the government is this. You're going to take a bunch of people, hopefully 1,000 people, off the cruise ship, and you're going to drop them on an island where they are only interacting with each other.
Aaron,
and you could police them and any non-cruise ship member.
Aaron,
if you let 5,000 people loose in New Providence proper to interact with the thousands of Bahamians, you require so many systems to manage them.
But we've been doing good this far. Like, you make it seem like you're letting to